when that first bullet flies, the whole purpose of the CBDC is to clamp down on capital outflows. Then you would need a government permission to do anything. So a lot has been moving out strategically, trying to get it out of harm's way, per se. I suggest you get about 2 years worth of supply of food, like pasta, things that will last.
Wow.
I do. I have it. And mainly, it's not price so much, but shortages. And so that's what you want to pay attention to. A lot of people, even World War II, died of starvation.
You're watching CapitalCosm. My name is Danny. It is October 20th, 2025, and my guest today is a big fan favorite. It's none other than Martin Armstrong himself. Marty, thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Danny. How you doing?
Good. You know, you and I always have a lot of stuff to talk about. So much stuff on and off camera that we sometimes lose track of the fact that we have a podcast to record. So, yeah. But let's go.
You're one of the more pleasant people that I speak to.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, good sir. I see we're both wearing blue as well, so our minds are in sync at the moment. So let's go ahead and dive in. What is on your radar screen right now, Martin? You have this stuff going on in Ukraine. You have, talks about Tomahawk missiles. No Tomahawk missiles. You have these public service announcements in Europe about, preparing the citizenry and the public for a wartime mindset. You've got gold spiking currently at 43, 48. It did see a sell-off on Friday. It's up 2% today. Silver's up 1% today. Seems to be all over the board lately. What's high on your radar at the moment?
Well, I think you have to realize that with all the talk of possible peace, this is what's been pushing gold up more than anything. It's really the geopolitical issues. It always is. You can, like I've said before, back in 1980, gold went from 100 to 400 between 76 and December 79. It went from 400 to 875 in the last 6 weeks. And that's when Russia invaded Afghanistan. So it's always really the geopolitical thing, not inflation sort of nonsense. Gold went down for 19 years from 1980, and national debt went up for 19 years. So it's really perception. And so you have central banks have been buying gold also because it's neutral. When you have Europe pounding the war drums, you don't want to buy their debt, honestly, because if they lose, you can frame it up. I've got some nice Confederate bonds we framed up, look very pretty, but they're worthless. If you lose the war, it's worthless. And then even after that, if you win the war, there's still hyperinflation, and stuff, because governments have spent so much money, and there's nobody really benefits from modern war today. This isn't the ancient times where Alexander the Great, crosses and Persia's got the biggest, treasury of gold and silver in the world. It's the spoils today. It's not there. All this nonsense about, Russia wants to invade Europe. For what? All right. They have no energy. They got to buy it from Russia. They have no rare earths, no major gold reserves. What are you going to get? all you're going to get is nothing but headaches, turmoil. You're walking into France and they're going to ask you, are you going to pay our pensions now? That's it.
Well, Martin, didn't you hear? They found a Russian passport at the scene of the crime at the Louvre Museum in France.
Yeah.
Apparently, a bunch of Russian thieves came in at the stroke of midnight, perhaps, and just stole tens of millions of dollars of French art collectibles and paintings and things that are just historical artifacts. I mean, didn't you get the memo?
Yeah, they're probably in the government's secret vault downstairs, so they can blame Russians. It's um, look, this is so we wage World War III for some, assuming it's even correct. Okay, every country has their thieves. Was that something that Putin ordered? I don't think so.
Yeah. There's 100 million of them, so I mean, you're bound to find some thieves every now and then.
Look, I mean, this is pretty standard. I mean, but anything they can do to keep the propaganda going, mainly because Europe it's screwed. I mean, it's our computer warrants it's not likely to even exist after 2030. You've had the EU, and they never designed the currency correctly to begin with. And as I've said before, when I got called in, I told them you had to consolidate the debt if you want to compete with the dollar. And it was Helmut Kohl that wouldn't allow them to do that. And he took Germany into the euro without a vote. And so he knew the German people would be against it, as was the Bundesbank. And because they would have seen consolidating the debt as bailing out Greece and Italy, etc. So he said no consolidation. Now, I warned them. This is going to undermine the euro. Here's the problem. When Greece got into trouble in 2010, the traders immediately looked and said, who's next? They started attacking Spain. France is the second largest economy in the EU. You've had finance ministers of UK and France say they may need an IMF bailout, like Greece did in 2010. They let in all these migrants. If you don't keep paying them, they're going to be rioting. And the rumors that France has been dipping into the 70-some billion that they froze from Russia, stealing that money. Euroclear is supposed to have 330. And so if France is pushed to seek an IMF bailout, what's it saying? Not only that they are in trouble, it's that they can't sell the new debt. And I've been warning all the time, a country fails when you can't sell the new debt to pay off the old. That's the default. So you get even a rumor that France is going to do that. And what's going to happen? The traders are going to look, because they never consolidated the debt. Our banking system is secure. They use federal debt. If California went bust, the traders are going to say, oh, who's next? Oh, Illinois. They're not going to attack the Fed. All right. So in Europe, because there is no federal debt, each bank has to have a portfolio made up of the debt of all these member states. So what will happen? I'm not an academic. I'm a trader. All right. First thing you're going to do is which banks hold the most French debt? Short them. All right. So you're looking at a complete catastrophe for Europe. You're looking at undermining the banking system, and you're looking at undermining the pension system. All right. This is why I say Europe is in serious trouble. This is also why they keep beating the war drums. If they can go to war against Russia, they don't have to pay back the over 300 billion that they already stole. All right. And, I've spoken to people in France, and they call, I've said before, they call Macron the petite Napoleon. Look, when people are desperate, and they know they're in trouble, all right, they come up with desperate measures. And Macron thinks they believe what these neocons are saying. Oh, Russia's weak. They couldn't conquer Ukraine. Well, they didn't try. Okay. They were just taking the Donbass. All right. We had staff there in Kiev when Putin brought all the tanks right up to Kiev. And there was a whole, column of them. And I was concerned for our staff there. I said, my God, I maybe I can get you out. No, it's okay. What's going on? Nothing. They're not doing anything. They're just there to show. All right. And then he withdrew the tanks. So if he wanted to really take Ukraine, he could have. Right then and there. All right.
Yeah, he never shut down the water supply or took down the electricity grid, which are conventional tactics and stratagems in a wartime setting. Because Marty, it seems like all of this stuff is connected: the gold price, the sovereign debt crisis in Europe, the war in Ukraine. And so what I mean by that is you have a sovereign debt crisis in Europe. You've got these European investors and elites buying gold as a hedge for safety, but then at the same time, they're trying to start a war with Russia to get themselves off the hook. And by starting a war with Russia, that creates more fear and anxiety in the market, which further precipitates more gold buying. Is that the right way to look at it, or
pretty much? I mean, it's just that it's not all the same people. I mean, we have a lot of the biggest institutions in Europe. I warned them, get your gold out. So they've been moving it to New York and to Singapore. And it's not that, it's just my opinion. I'm just looking and say, look, historically, what does Europe do? Europe always puts in capital controls, without exception. All right. They even shut down gold buying and stuff like that before. So I've warned them that, like World War II, probably, the best thing was, oh God, sorry, I forgot to turn that one off.
No worries.
But there we go. I got a phone for each continent, so but you have to, that during World War II, you couldn't even buy gold. So I've warned them that what became the best hedge for a European during World War II was U.S. gold stocks. Trading on U.S. exchanges. Even World War I, they shut down all the European stock markets to prevent you from selling anything. So, and what they've just started phase 1 of this. Last week, they put in, if you're going to travel to Europe or leave, you must report all your bank accounts. Why? They want to know what you have, where. Are you trying to take money out? I suspect they will probably shut down even Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is probably the number one money laundering agent out there. You can buy it in one country and sell it in another. It goes, no problem. But they have been pushing for their CBDCs by October. I've said, look, I'm not that optimistic that they could get that through right now. I think maybe by January. And this is where the false flags come in. They need something like that to justify it. Oh, Russians are sending all this money in here to undermine our economy or something, or trying to get money out, whatever. They did that. France did that when, they put that one cover on the magazine, criticized Mohammed. And then all of a sudden, monies from terrorists are coming in, this, that. They always use something like that as the excuse.
So January is a likely date. If they were to pull a CBDC off in Europe, would it be backed by like gold or anything, or like a basket of currencies, or just need nothing? Just like
in Spain, they've already, they said you can't take out more than 3,000 euros without government permission from your account. It's capital controls. They don't give a shit if what it's backed by or anything else. This is about power. And that's why I say about Bitcoin. And I know a lot of Bitcoin always centralized. No, they can ban people from buying it. All right. If you try to leave, you have to now report all your accounts. All right. This is about power. And it's not equitable. It's not anything else. It's about them retaining control. And their CBDCs, it's got nothing to do with is it good for the economy? Bad? It's to prevent people from, fleeing with money. They did that in World War I and World War II. In fact, even the German hyperinflation, most Germans moved their money out of the country and established accounts elsewhere. When Hitler came in 1933, he passed a law. It was illegal for a German to have an account outside the country. That's when Switzerland in 1934 sought to protect the Germans and created their secret numbered accounts, no name. All right. So these things, like I say, this is not my opinion. We're just looking at what they routinely do over there. They cancel currencies. Americans, we've never had our currency canceled. They do that routinely so that you can't have a stash of 100,000 in a bank account. Or in a safe deposit box. They cancel the currency. It's now worthless. It forces you to bring it to the bank and say, here are the old ones. Give me the new ones. Oh, where'd you get this? Did you pay your taxes? It's standard operating procedure over there. I went through the Berlin Wall before it fell. They forced you to buy East German marks, one up for German marks. You get into town, every price you see, even in the government hotel, oh no, that's West German marks. So I'm leaving with the same amount of East German marks I was forced to buy to begin with. And then to get out, you got to list everything you have. I listed what I had in East German marks. And this, woman, huge woman, probably the size of both of us together, pulls this cord and she goes, Marks. They come, grab me by the arms, take me back, confiscate the money, and I'm waiting and waiting. I said, are you just going to give me my money back? Oh, here's your receipt. You have to stay the night and go to the central bank. They redeem. We only confiscate. I said, okay, fine. And you say you're not capitalist? Keep it. Thank you very much. Can I leave now? Um, this is it's standard. I mean, I'm just telling you, I've gone through it many times. Um, I
So
always kept a few $100s of every currency in my wallet because of traveling around a lot. And then you get there, oh no, that's canceled. Sorry. I got Indian rupees that are canceled. um, you just frame them all up and they look nice. I got, I don't think the Queen currency from Britain's valid anymore either.
yeah.
They cancel their currency routinely as well.
Yeah. So looking ahead, I know the last time we spoke, you mentioned a panic cycle coming in sometime in 2026 on some of the findings of your Socrates forecasting model. Is
Mm-hmm.
that still the case? Like, what are some of the key forecasts that you're getting from Socrates nowadays or lately?
We still see that in international war, and we also see it in the euro. I'm talking about a panic cycle for the year.
Mm,
Um, you know, I should say that I've been warning that we have two separate models. One which focuses on civil unrest. That's where revolutions come from.
hmm
Then the other model is more international conflicts between countries. All right. Um, Usually you get um, like the civil unrest one was dominant in the 60s to early 70s, and we saw what we ended up with back then. All right. But it wasn't aligned with the international war model.
Right.
All right. This time, both of them are targeting the same period. So, and you can see it coming, like a train coming down the tracks with the light on right at you. They let in all these migrants in Europe. And look, when the Europeans came here, there wasn't a free lunch. Um, Everybody came here to make a new life, work, etc. These migrants in Europe, they can't speak the language, they have no skills, and they're just being paid to sit home and watch TV. I mean, I was in Germany, and the previous year when I went there were migrants all over the place. So then I went back the following year and I didn't see that many. I said, hey, where'd they all go? I swear to God, I couldn't believe what I was told. The government paid them for
Mm,
a 2-week vacation to return back to the countries that they claim they need asylum from. Fully paid vacation on the government. I said, who makes up these ideas? And first of all, I'm fleeing this country because my life is in danger, but I go back there for a vacation. Um, I mean, it's, I don't know. Do we have
so
anybody more intelligent than Hermit the Frog running governments anymore, or what?
hard to argue with that. But has there ever been a time in history where we've seen like a spike in the revolutionary cycle as well as like the international war cycle simultaneously, or is this unprecedented?
No, the last time was basically at the end of the 18th century. Um,
Hmm.
so we had the American Revolution, then the French Revolution says, "Oh, that's a good idea." You have an international war, and then that even spilled over and continued into 1848, which swept all of Europe within 50 years. Um,
So
so
this is
this,
like once in a quarter of a millennium.
yeah, no, this is um, basically once every roughly 300 years or whatever. Um, you tend to overthrow the form of government. And so I think that's what our 2032 is about. It's um, I believe this time you're looking at the collapse of republics. Our founding fathers, unfortunately, um, I think they believed uh, the three Greek philosophers that were against democracy, and they chose the worst of all, which is a republic.
Mm.
And they believed the fake news of Cicero back then. Oh, Caesar's a dictator, blah blah blah. Really, read all the contemporary accounts. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon, what happened? He did not have to fight to Rome. All the cities opened their gates. They cheered him as a savior. There was a huge debt crisis. Okay. It was the Senate that fled Rome to Asia.
Hey guys, quick break from the video. I want to put something on your radar screen that I think a lot of you will appreciate, actually. There's this book called After the Fall, Worldwide Financial and Economic Collapse, a real world survival guide. And honestly, it's kind of a must read if you've been paying attention to what's going on out there. And if you are watching this video and are subscribed to this channel, then you know what's going on. Inflation's up, markets are shaky, governments are scrambling. It's so screwed up out there. And this book lays out what could happen next. And more importantly, what you can actually do about it. The best part, it's super straightforward. It's for everyday people. So no confusing jargon, no endless theory, just real practical steps to help you get ready for tough times. Whether that's protecting your money, making smarter day-to-day decisions, or just not being caught off guard. I dropped a link in the description box if you want to check it out. And seriously, guys, if you've ever thought, what if things get worse? Am I ready? This is a great place to start. So thanks for your time. Let's get back to the video. Bye.
Obviously, they didn't have the support of the people, did they? You know, Caesar put in, you know, he was a great reformer. The high priest, I mean, to show you the corruption level, the high priest had the discretion to put in leap days. So they would bribe the high priest. They didn't want to go to an election, give us an extra couple months. So when Caesar crossed the Rubicon, it was supposed to be January 10th, according to the calendar. All right. It would have been dead winter. It wasn't winter. The seasons got so out of whack. Caesar created our calendar, and he formalized it and basically created the leap days, etc. Took we were based, Rome was based on the moon rather than the sun, and they knew it was not correct, so they gave the high priest the discretion. When you can bribe the high priest for elections, what does that say? Even the election of 53 AD, you can look it up. The bribery was so intense that interest rates doubled. I mean, it was even like a Senate investigation on the. I mean, come on. And this is what we picked.
So, juxtaposing what history has told us about these types of moments in time, what can we anticipate? From you mentioned interest rates. Are we looking at higher interest rates from now on? Can we have higher interest rates given the debt burden that we have? Are we looking at higher precious metals prices, higher commodity prices? What are some of the economic ramifications of going through these peak, once in a quarter millennium cycles that we're currently undergoing?
Pretty much everything you said is on point. The interest rates rise. Primarily, they're going to rise in Europe when they're beating the war drums. Okay, this increases the the cost of rolling the debt. Like this year, we're going to spend close to $1 trillion just in interest expenditures. Ronald Reagan, everybody freaked out because the national debt hit $1 trillion in 1980. All right. It's not sustainable. Honestly, a 3-year-old with a pocket calculator could figure out we're going bust. All right. You can't keep issuing debt year after year after year with no intention of paying anything off, because you have to service that debt. If you really analyze the national debt, you'll see the vast majority of it was for wars. It's not, for moms and pops and whatever. The vast majority, we're still paying interest on the debt from World War I, World War II, Vietnam. Wow. It doesn't end. You give $3 trillion to the psychopath there in Ukraine. That's this year. By by 2030, there will be $10 trillion we're spending in interest expenditures.
Wow.
It's undermining everything we have. And that's what the computer is showing. It's a sovereign debt crisis. This brings down the governments. When they can no longer sell the new debt to keep this can rolling down the street, it comes to a head.
So how can people from like an investing standpoint protect themselves given what you just laid out here? I mean, it sounds like gold and silver, like how should an investor's portfolio be structured in a time like this?
Understand that this is basically what we call going into the end of a private wave. A private wave is when you have more confidence in the private sector than you do in the government. So you buy private assets. Mm-hmm. That's just why some people don't understand it. They keep saying, "Oh, it's all going to crash. You got stock market up. It's the the everything bubble."
Right.
Yeah, fine. I still get phone calls every week. Hey, you want to sell your house? No, not interested. And realtors I talk to here in Florida, even houses that are like 5 to 10 million now, people just paying cash. They're parking money. That's basically what's happening. You don't want to hold, government debt. Basically, U.S. it will be the last to fall, not the first. We have the largest economy in the world, but it's a consumer-based economy. I mean, as you know, we even have offices in China. I know every which side from Sunday. China has looked at the economic models of Europe, and they are failing. They've looked at the United States, and they see how the United States has boomed. China is deliberately copying the United States to create a consumer-based economy. All right. That's the key. Whereas you can Google it up and you look, the average net worth of a German citizen is less than that of an Italian. Germany is so mired in its old and antiquated ideas of what inflation is. Oh, it's printing money, the quantity theory of money. Sorry, total bullshit. Does not work. They look at the hyperinflation. The hyperinflation came as a result of, not the cause of. All right. In December 22, they couldn't make reparation payments. They confiscated 10% of everybody's accounts. If you had this 10% brain function, you moved your money out of Germany. That's what I said about Hitler. Right? In 33, came back illegal to have an account. So because everybody left, they had to keep printing money to make the reparation payments. All right. That's when the hyperinflation starts in 23, the year after they confiscate 10% of everybody's assets. So Germany's got it ass backwards. Oh, it was the hyperinflation. No, it was not. That was the result of, not the cause of. All right. So consequently, they keep their taxes very high. They're so afraid of inflation. That's what I was saying about coal wouldn't allow the German people to even vote to join the euro. It's this obsession with inflation over there, which is completely wrong. And they have oppressed their people. Germany is 25% of the EU economy. It's moving into depression. They went nuts on the COVID. Then they went nuts on the climate change. Then they went nuts and actually put sanctions on Russia. Their economy is shrinking. The number of possible jobs is declining. Then they told their car industry, oh, you can't produce gas cars. We want you to do electric. You saw tens of thousands of protesters out there from Volkswagen. And that's why I say, honestly, I'm probably giving Hermit Frog a bad reputation. He's probably smarter than the politicians.
Yeah, they're not that smart. Let's not get too carried away now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that whatever stupid decision they could have possibly made economically, they did.
So
Europe's not. It can't survive. It cannot possibly survive this way.
Right. So to kind of recap, it looks like gold, like precious metals, commodities. Do you keep going along the general stock market here in this kind of scenario, or do you kind of lay off it a bit?
Well, I think you'll get a little bit of a pullback in the metals and everything for at least a couple of weeks or so, but it depends upon the perception of peace, etc. But when you look at the stock market, there's more of a risk of a bubble in the AI stocks, not necessarily in the blue chips. Just watch, if you call up the charts for the last few years, you'll see that the Dow led the way up. The Dow is where the big institutional money parks. They don't buy the IPO stuff. But talking in Europe, Europe is not necessarily in on the gold yet. Retail has been minimal over there, but they're all in the in the AI stocks. So I would be more concerned about Nvidia, stuff like that, reaching a temporary high. Okay, but then you're looking at how does we've got just two clients, both with well over $1 trillion portfolios.
Wow.
And people don't understand, a money manager that's got 50 million, 100 million, they can just pick up the phone and say, do this, do that. All right. When you're at this kind of level, you can't. You have to strategically get in and out. The markets aren't big enough. All right. So, over the years, I basically do a lot of consulting on what we call a natural hedge. I need more assets in this country versus that one, because the markets aren't big enough to handle it. All right. So we'll buy companies, land, things of that nature in one currency denominated, and I book that off against another currency to create what we call a natural hedge. Because you can't pick up the phone and say, give me a hedge on $1 trillion. You'd be lucky if the ninjas don't show up at your front door 5 minutes later and lock you up. So it's a different, a completely management style. You have to understand the markets, the size, who's doing what, when, where, and how. So it's much more difficult.
I see.
But that's why you'll see the big money will tend to go more towards the Dow, where you can park size, but they're not going to buy the latest IPO off of NASDAQ. Even if it doubles, so what? That didn't even make a 0.1 impact on the portfolio.
Yeah. Well, big money is one thing, but what about smart money? Do you have any insight in terms of where smart money is parking their capital given current economic conditions?
Yeah, I mean, most of the or medium size, what I call smart money, they've been moving to the States. They've been putting it in equities, even real estate, things of this nature. And
in the United States.
Yeah. Across the pond. And I suspect that may get even more aggressive next year. What I've warned them is that when that first bullet flies, the whole purpose of the CBDC is to clamp down on capital outflows. Then you would need a government permission to do anything. So a lot has been moving out strategically, trying to get it out of harm's way, per se, because this is just the way it's going to go. Europe is not, it's just not prepared to do what's necessary. And the problem with Europe is that they are way too Marxist. Everything is, you're not allowed to take out so many euros out of an ATM machine. You can't rent a hotel and pay more than 1,000 euros. That's a crime. They got to know everything you're doing.
Very controlling, yes.
Oh, you found €100 in the parking lot. Where's our 50%? If not 60. It's just, I've said before, I had meetings in Berlin, and I had a meeting in the afternoon in Rome. Normally not a problem. I had to rent a private jet. There were no nonstop flights. They canceled because it's too short for climate change.
Really?
It was like, what? These are two major capital cities, and I couldn't get a direct flight between the two, except for like 6 o'clock in the morning or something. That was it. I don't know. It just, I was totally shocked that I had to do that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like definitely from what you're telling me is that Europe is definitely the destination that people are fleeing their capital from, and the United States is a beneficiary of it. Now, once these panic cycles and these pockets of war really get going across the world, geographically, I mean, where would be the most not advantageous, but safest, let's say, safest locations, most the location that would benefit the most, not benefit, but be harmed the least from the coming global war?
It's still probably United States, mainly because I do feel fairly confident that Trump is anti-war. And I mean, I mean, I was actually called in this week. Can't really say a lot about it, but what I've explained is that all this nonsense about Putin, Putin, Putin. When Khrushchev um, had to back down off of the Cuban Missile Crisis, that embarrassed Russia. There was a coup, Brezhnev overthrown. Then, um, in the book I wrote, The Plot to Seize Russia, right in the beginning, I got the declassified documents from the Clinton administration. When Gorbachev came in and the communist USSR collapsed, there was a proposal, and I put it in right in the book, right from the Clinton administration documents. Russia was invited to join NATO. And they have their neocons like we have ours. And they then staged a coup against Gorbachev. That's when Yeltsin had to stand on the tank. And he told the troops not to fire on the Russian people. They didn't. They listened to him, and the coup failed. I said, if you think, this is why I think they have listened to me, because I know both sides. If you think you can get Putin to get out of Ukraine with its tail between the legs, good luck. Assuming he even did that, there's going to be a third coup. And this time you're going to have somebody like Medvedev in there, and it's not going to look pretty.
Like a hardliner, like their own neocon, right, so to speak.
Exactly. So my view is, and I have expressed this, take the Putin deal for the tunnel to Alaska. All right. People have heard a lot about rare earths, but I don't think they really understand what they're not really rare. What's rare is to find a concentration of them enough that makes it viable. Okay. China has basically a monopoly on rare earths. Why is this important? Okay. This was behind Trump's 51st state with Canada, Greenland, etc. It takes 920 pounds of rare earths to make just one F-35 jet plane. People don't know this. Okay. Ukraine trying to bullshit everybody. Oh, we got rare. No, they do not. Okay. There is no significant concentration of rare earths enough in Ukraine to make it really viable at this stage. The tunnel deal is there are rare earths in Alaska. And Russia has the technology to do this. We do not. Okay. Russia also realizes, on the other side of the coin is China. They're not 100% in bed. So Putin's suggestion of building a tunnel with a high-speed rail through it, and the assistance in the Arctic up there to mine for rare earths, all right, is the greatest possibility for peace, period. Why? Because this is what I have told Washington, all right, if we enter into joint ventures with Russians, all right, to develop rare earths in Russia as well as in Alaska or whatever, then that aligns us with Russia against NATO. It's going to be hard for them to claim Russia wants to invade.
Yes.
When they really do not. There's nothing in Europe worthwhile invading for. And this last meeting may have turned into another little bit of a shouting match. And you see Zelensky may have backed down. What I have warned is this, is that the last time I even put a video of Kalis, who's the former PM of Estonia. She's number 2 there in the EU. She's a ruthless neocon. And when Trump was negotiating with Putin the last time, she publicly came out, we're not going to honor anything. We're not at the table. And we have to be at the table. Otherwise, it doesn't count. So a lot of times I think I get called in because I know how to deal with governments. I call it wordsmithing. All right.
To mop up the mess.
Yeah, it's look, I advised Maggie Thatcher keeping the pound out of the euro. She did. Then they staged a coup to get rid of her. And they took the pound in and they overvalued it to make it look strong. And then Soros starts attacking it. So now because I told them not to do this, they had to call me in. So I said, look, you overvalued the pound. You got to devalue it. I was told we can't. John Major ran for election and said he would not devalue the pound. So this is the wordsmithing. Okay, fine. All right. You have them say, we're going to allow the pound to float to seek its own level. Oh, brilliant. It's the same thing. Okay. It's just that the market's doing it rather than him declaring it. All right. So what I've suggested here is because of Kalis, what we say is, hey, this isn't my deal. You already signed it. It's called the Minsk Agreement. That the Donbass was allowed to take a vote and separate. You wouldn't honor it, and that's what caused the whole war. If the Minsk Agreement had been honored, Putin would have never crossed the border. All right. He even told that to Zelensky. All right. So my view was, one, you tell the EU you will honor the Minsk Agreement, or I don't know if they said this, I would have. The U.S. will withdraw from NATO.
Damn.
You're on your own.
Damn.
And to Zelensky, who's the money grubber of all, I would say I'm going to issue an executive order, and nobody will be allowed to invest. No American, directly or indirectly, will be allowed to invest any money in Ukraine whatsoever. Cut off his dreams of trillions of dollars coming in so he can line his pockets. All of a sudden, after this meeting, he comes out and he says, all right, fine. Maybe to end this war, we have to freeze it where it is.
Is there any appetite by the Trump administration to not enter the war themselves, but leverage Europe to fight Russia on their behalf? Or is it simply Europe acting on its own to fight Russia?
No, this is Europe.
Okay.
I was concerned about the Tomahawk missiles. I said, what is this? This is crazy. You give them to this psychopath over there. He's already threatened to level the Kremlin itself. And says, Putin, I hope you got a big enough, bombshell. Is it, really? Well, then if I was Russia, I would give the same ability to Venezuela and give them targeting for the White House. What's the difference?
Speaking of which, what's going on there with Venezuela? Are we about to go to war with Venezuela, or what's your take there?
Yeah, the whole thing down there is they are most of the Venezuelans that I do know, and there are some that have fled here, live with family in Florida. They see him as a narcotic regime. So, and that comes from them, not from Washington or anybody else. So,
So are we going to see? Do you anticipate regime change in Venezuela or boots on the ground? Like, what do you think are next steps here?
My main concern about South America is that, and I think this is why Trump was trying to support Venezuela and Argentina. If South America is infested with Marxism, and always has been. This has been their reason they default routinely. Look at what Brazil is doing to Bolsonaro. It's left, left, left. And this is what has oppressed South America. It has prevented it from ever really rising through the economic malaise. And Argentina is the first country to challenge that. If I understand the theory, if Argentina can come out of this and survive, maybe it then becomes a model for the rest of South America. That's pretty much the real idea. And because South America is never going to be able to get up off its knees until it abandons this Marxist agenda. Let people freely expand their economies. And that's what basically, as you know, when China, after Tiananmen Square, I was invited into China to help them become capitalist. And it was a very interesting experience because I was taken to this facility and there were hundreds of people in there pulling down everything from the internet. And the questions that I was answering were almost grade school level.
Yeah.
Well, they were tracking 249 varieties of tea. Why is this tea selling more here than there? Well, where's it coming from? Transportation costs.
Price discovery,
yeah. I got to see why communism failed. Because this idea of equality sounds nice, all right, but materially, it's a disaster. We're all equal in rights, absolutely, all right. But if a tea was $1 here, it had to be $1 over there to be fair and equal, even if it cost you $10 to get it there. That was the whole problem with communism. And then one question, well, why would somebody pay more for this tea versus that? Because they might like it more. Oh, really? It was like dehumanizing.
Value subjective. I mean, value is not.
So I really got to see it close up, and that's my experience with that side. And the communism of China was different than that of Russia. Russia was driven by Stalin, who was paranoid. So they taught in the schools, if your parent ever spoke against the government, report them. One kid did, and they may turn him into like a saint. And whereas in China, they didn't care what you said to your wife. But if you stuck your head up and told everybody in the neighborhood, it got cut off. The tall poppy syndrome. Whereas Stalin was worried about what you said to your wife. So there was just Stalin was very, very paranoid.
Very controlling. Yes.
So I think that's the different flavors between the two communists. And the difference, I believe, my opinion, because China didn't interfere in that family unit, China boomed very fast after the fall of Tiananmen Square. Russia did not. They kind of almost strip mine the people of what is humanity.
And China also opened up the price discovery, like you said. They also opened up their markets to.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much a capitalistic economy over there. With they got the Marxist undertones at the very top, but for all intents and purposes, you have wealth accumulation, you have billionaires, you have private property. And
look, I had explained this in Washington. I said, look, if you have to understand the Asian psyche. All right, they still call it the Communist Party, but they're not communists, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You got probably more billionaires than we have.
Yep.
I said, the point is, if they change the name of the party, then they have to take Mao's picture down off the Forbidden City and say he was wrong.
I guess you could call them MINOs, Marxists in name only, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but you know, look, I've dealt with Asia, for 40 years. I mean, it's you have to understand the thinking process, and how things do happen there.
Mm-hmm.
It's substantially different. When the stock market in Japan was crashed, I mean, there were people actually diving from, office buildings because they had to take responsibility. Like 1929, you saw over here, but they were actually swan diving from major, office buildings.
I see.
It's quite different.
Yeah,
quite different.
Well, Martin, I know we get so caught up in these conversations. I look at the time, and we still have a few questions that I need to ask on behalf of my Substack audience. These are questions from my paying members on my Substack at CapitalCosm, capitalcosm.substack.com. The first question, and if you'd like to ask a question, if you'd like to submit questions to any of my future guests, consider becoming a paid member. A link is down below. My first question from Grisha. And so his question is, given the unfair judgment against you, Martin, that locked you up for 6 years, do you think it's time to rebuild our legal process from scratch so that justice is actually served? Maybe separating justice from money would be a good start, where everyone has access to justice all of the time and for free. If we can separate money from justice, I expect that the rats will desert the lucrative litigation industry and pave the way for the true believers of justice, to which we can all have access to.
Yes, and I have voiced my opinion on Capitol Hill about justice reform. My father was a lawyer. I studied law, and when my case started in New York, the lawyer says, "Oh shit, it's New York." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "Oh, you don't understand. In New York, they practice law differently than every place else." And boy, do you find out. Changing transcripts, throwing the press out. I mean, it was just one atrocity after another that you watch. That's why when Epstein I saw where he was put. You can look it up. I put a blog in. The question is, does he die before a plea or after? They will never, ever allow someone of that magnitude, to be put on trial. Not going to happen. Oswald, kill him. Why? Because he might actually say who was behind him.
Yeah.
I will say this.
The risk of letting him speak is much worse than the risk of people finding out that he was killed.
Oh yeah, I will say this. I was shown this week the KGB file on JFK.
Oh, interesting.
That was released to them.
Okay.
The CIA destroyed it the last time. Unquestionably, and I will say this was a comment in a meeting, that you do realize what you're doing is what they killed JFK for. I said, I understand.
Wow.
He wanted to create peace, and our neocons in the CIA didn't want that. The same way as I said, the neocons overthrew Gorbachev over there, they didn't want peace. It's I am more concerned about Trump's meeting in Bucharest. I did express my view. It should take place in Washington, D.C. I don't trust NATO. I don't trust the EU. And I certainly don't trust Zelensky. And either one is a fair target. Look, they have to know what I know. You take out Putin and you're going to get a neocon.
Right.
Well, why would you even try to assassinate him?
Careful what you wish for sure.
Exactly. So on the legal side, I think what I have explained is, look, our legal system is completely broken. It's got to be revamped. No judge should decide whether he recuses himself. It should go to an independent panel that's not in even the same district, because then his friends are involved.
Mm-hmm.
It just gets to be ridiculous. You can look at John Stuart Mill wrote a book on liberty in 1859. One of my favorite passages from that says, "We have yet to free ourselves from the stain of legal persecution." So what they did to Trump, what they did to me, any of this stuff, all right, it's not new. When the movie on me came out, The Forecaster, I think it was in Stuttgart for a showing. So I went over there, and then afterwards you have a question answer period. And this woman stood up and she said, oh, this is the problem with American legal system. It's so corrupt like that. Then a German lawyer stood up and he said, what do you mean? We do this to people here all the time. It's systemic. You look at Brazil trying to put Bolsonaro in prison for 27 years. France going after Marine Le Pen. You're seeing the same thing. Zelensky went after all his opponents. Romania, suddenly the guy that won the biggest vote, criminal. It's absolutely a joke, our legal system. It's a joke. There are, there's going to be a sequel to The Forecaster coming out, but then there's a Hollywood film. I agreed they can do this. I said under the conditions that you really show the legal system as is. The judge who tried to throw me in contempt first, and the lawyer I had was a friend of mine, so he knew me personally. And he called me. He says, "What are you, crazy?" I said, "Richard, what's up?" He said, "We got a contempt hearing tomorrow. They said you went to the office, you took out all the incriminating evidence. The guards chased you through parking lots, and you got away." I said, "What?" I said, "I was in New York. I believe that they were illegally tapping his phone line because I was at a friend's house at the time." So I told him, "You call the security company. I would have had to swipe twice to get into the building." All right. He calls me back. He says, "Don't worry about it. I got this." The security company said nobody entered that building. We go to court the next day for this supposed contempt hearing. As the judge is walking out, the government's jumping up, saying, "Oh, there's been a mistake, been a mistake. Somebody just moved boxes from one room to another, but nothing was taken." They spent at least 30 minutes of drool trying to explain how does that get to guards chasing me through parking lots and all this other kind of crazy shit. And then the judge finally stops them and says, "Okay, so you're withdrawing all the charges?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Okay, Mr. Armstrong, you're in good shape." That's it. I get the transcript. All this is gone. The only thing that remains is this ending paragraph. "Okay, you're withdrawing all the charges." I asked the lawyers, I said, "What happened to everything else?" "Oh, in New York, the judges can take out anything they think isn't relevant." They alter the transcript. All right. And there's a Second Circuit case on this, U.S. versus Cicatello, page 97. And this shows how bad the legal system is. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals says judges are changing transcripts. If you or I did that, that's 20 years in prison. All right. We think they should stop. We question whether we have the power. Look it up online. Whether we have the power to tell a judge to obey the law. If the Court of Appeals does not have the power to tell a judge obey the law, who the hell does?
Who does indeed?
I mean,
Wow.
I put in a motion to recuse this judge. It was so outrageous. Okay. Hundreds of people showed up. I said, "What's going on?" The lawyers said, "It's you." I said, "Me?" And they said, "Yeah, you can't accuse a federal judge of committing a felony." I said, "You all say they do it." "Yeah, but you can't accuse them of that." This is the legal profession in New York.
Now, was that judge the exception or the rule?
No. I found other judges doing the same thing. And for the Second Circuit to write this, and it had to do another judge, not him. And so, because hundreds of people were there, and I filed this motion pro se, means myself. A lawyer has to give a list of the people he's going to call for a witness to the judge, and the judge must approve. What's he going to say? Do I really want to hear it? All right, this is the scheme. Pro se, I don't have to do that. So I submitted it pro se. The judge gets scared because now he sees hundreds of people there. He doesn't know if I'm going to start calling people to the stand. So he admits it. And it's right in the document, the transcript. Perhaps I put in a comma. Perhaps I put in a dash. I do not recall changing anything material. The whole place went dead silent. When I walked out, they said, "Oh my God, you got a federal judge to admit he committed a crime." He refused to recuse himself. He's now a witness in the case. Doesn't matter. I filed an appeal. The Second Circuit lost it 3 times. 3 times. And then said I was out of time to appeal. They protect their own. I'm telling you, it's so.
Wow.
I said, this scene's got to be in this Hollywood movie. Then fine. I'm happy. But you've got to show America what is in the court system. It's horrible.
Man, that was pretty discouraging. Hopefully you don't get into any more trouble here, Marty, but I got one more question for you, if you don't mind.
What's that? This
is from Jane A. Kane. Her question is, what do you think will happen to the supply chains in 2026? Which will be most affected, and what advice to prepare?
Typically in war, the most sensitive supply chain is food. They're buying up food for soldiers, stuff like that. World War II, perhaps you'll recall that they even had victory gardens, told you to grow your own food. I suggest you get about 2 years worth of supply of food, like pasta, things that will last.
Wow.
I do. I have it. And mainly, it's not price so much, but shortages. And so that's what you want to pay attention to. A lot of people, even World War II, died of starvation. So that's usually the number one area that's a problem. And I'd like, for commerce, look, living in Florida, when the power grid goes down, not even a credit card would work. So forget Bitcoin. All right. I suggest having some of the old silver coinage pre 1965 rather than even gold, because nobody's going to be able to make change for gold, and you're talking about somebody who's not familiar with what gold and silver even look like. But they can look at a quarter and say, "Oh, okay, fine. That says 1962. I know that's good." So we got to deal with the lowest denominations.
Right. So junk silver?
Yeah, not rare coins or anything. It's just we used to trade them in $1,000 bags on the Chicago exchange. That stopped. I'm not sure how long ago, but back in the 60s and 70s, that was a contract on Chicago, $1,000 bag.
Gotcha. Well, Marty, enlightening discussion as always. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up here? Before we that we didn't get into before we sign off?
No, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed, trying to keep us at least out of any war with Russia. I don't see that as working out well for Europe. And I do scream as loud as I can on Capitol Hill to try and keep that goal in place. That if we at least stay out, then we're better, but Europe is not going to survive.
Right. Well, we commend your service, good sir. Where can people find you if they want to see more of your work?
You can go to armstrongeconomics.com. We keep it as an open source. You don't have to put in any emails. We don't sell advertising. We're trying to be a lone voice in the wilderness, I guess.
Totally. Sounds good. Well, Martin, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. It's always a pleasure and a joy having you and, listening to your insights. And you always have new and exciting and very insightful things that you always share with us. So much appreciated for your time. Guys, if you got value out of this podcast, quite frankly, I don't know how you wouldn't, but if you did, drop us a comment and write "Go Martin Go" in the comments section. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode. I do, in fact, read all the comments, by the way, guys. So if you want your thoughts known to me at the very minimum, let me know. I'll respond to a small handful of them as well. And by liking, subscribing, and commenting and doing all the YouTube stuff, you help in getting us pushed by the algorithm. And so it may not seem like much, but it does go a long way, and it's free. Everyone's favorite 4-letter F word, right? So also subscribe to us on Substack at CapitalCosm.substack.com to get access to all of my stuff early, ad-free, and uncensored. And with all that said, I appreciate your time, guys, and I will catch you later. Bye.
Goodbye.